I wasn't looking for this. I was in the middle of something else. A cold case from a different county. Pulling digitized administrative records, the kind of work that takes 3 hours and turns up nothing. Standard intake ledgers. Transfer logs. The kind of document you scan and move past. Except I didn't move past this one. The ledger was standard. Columns for intake date, unit assignment, bed allocation, total. At the bottom of the summary row, 2 numbers. One column read 312. The other read 311. Those 2 numbers should always be the same. In 40 years of records, they always are. Except this once. I told myself it was a typo. Transposed digit. Data entry error from the digitization process. I noted it in my file and kept going. 3 days later, I came back to it. Not because I had a reason. Because I kept waking up thinking about it. One number is how many people were logged as present in that facility on that date. The other number is how many beds the state had funded and allocated. Those numbers come from different sources. They're reconciled independently. For them to differ by exactly 1, not 2, not a rounding error, means something specific. It means one person was there who wasn't supposed to be there. Or one person was there who the state has chosen not to count. I filed the records request the next morning. The FOIA request was simple. All inmate intake records for that facility for that calendar year. Name, assigned unit, intake date, discharge or transfer status. Standard request. The kind that gets fulfilled in 6 to 8 weeks. Mine came back in 11. 311 files. I counted them twice. Then I went line by line through the ledger summary I'd photographed. The intake total was 312. The FOIA return was 311. The response letter was stamped across the top, complete disclosure. All records provided in full. I filed an appeal the same day. I attached a copy of the intake ledger. I cited the specific page, the specific row, the specific discrepancy. I asked them to account for the gap between the ledger count and the returned file counts. The appeal came back in 3 weeks. Faster than the original request. It said records reflect complete disclosure. Nothing else. No acknowledgement of the ledger. No explanation of the number. Just that sentence and a case closure stamp. I went back to the intake ledger and looked at it differently. The ledger listed unit assignments. Most inmates were assigned to one of the standard designations. But there was a category I hadn't paid attention to the first time. A unit code that appeared exactly once in the entire document. One entry. No name attached to it in the summary. Just the unit code and the number 1 in the adjacent column. The unit code was for sublevel B. I requested the facility floor plan. Every publicly available version I could find showed sublevel B on the schematic. The level existed. The corridor was there. But the room labeled as the administrative hold unit on that level, the room that unit code pointed to, was blank on every single version. No label. No designation. Just a rectangle with nothing inside it. I went around the facility records. Filed a second FOIA, this time to the state controller's office. Not for inmate files. For budget records. Specifically, the bed allocation amendments for that facility for the year in question and the 2 years following. The controller's records came back in about 6 weeks. Most of it was what I expected. Standard allocation tables. Annual figures. Nothing unusual. Except one document. A budget amendment. Filed 8 months after the end of the year in question. Retroactive in application. The amendment adjusted the official bed count for that facility upward by exactly one. One bed. Added after the fact, dated to cover the year that had already ended. Amendments like that happen. Facilities expand. Populations shift. It's not impossible. But this one had a field I hadn't seen in the other documents. A case number field. Most amendments in that archive left that field blank or marked NA. This one had a case number entered. A specific alphanumeric string. Handwritten, which was unusual for a typed form. I ran the case number. The file it returned was 9 pages long. I know that because the page count was listed in the file index. 9 pages. Every page was redacted. Not partially redacted. Not with visible context around the blacked out sections. Fully redacted. Name field black bar. Date field black bar. Assigned unit black bar. Current status black bar. The only thing visible on any page was the case number at the top, which matched the number I'd searched, and the classification header, which read administrative hold. I sat with that for a while. Administrative hold is not a standard classification. It's a designation used in specific circumstances. A source I contacted, someone who had worked in state corrections administration for over a decade, speaking to me without attribution, told me there are historically 2 reasons a person ends up in an administrative hold unit with a fully sealed file. The first is protective custody. A cooperating witness whose safety requires their location be undisclosed. The second is more complicated. It's used, my source said, when someone's presence in the facility creates a legal liability for the facility itself. When acknowledging there would open the state to exposure it doesn't want. I want to be clear about what I have and what I don't have. I don't have a name. I don't know who the 312th person was. I don't know if they were a witness being protected, or if they represent something the facility needed to keep off the books, or if there's an explanation I haven't found yet. I have looked for that explanation. I spent a long time looking for it before I accepted that the record isn't going to give it to me. What I have is this: an intake ledger that records 312 people. A FOIA return of 311 files stamped complete. An appeal denial that doesn't address the discrepancy. A floor plan with an unlabeled room on sublevel B. A budget amendment that retroactively funds exactly 1 additional bed, filed 8 months after the year it covers, referencing a case number. A case file attached to that case number that is 9 pages of solid black bars. And a classification header that says administrative hold. I also have a timestamp. Sometime after I accessed the budget amendment through the controller's archive, I can't tell you the exact date because I wasn't monitoring the archive in real time. The amendment was removed. It's not there anymore. I went back to pull the direct link I had bookmarked, and the document returns a 404. I searched the amendment number in the controller's index, and it no longer appears. I have the PDF I downloaded when I first found it. The metadata on that file shows the date and time I accessed it. It shows the document's own internal timestamp from when it was filed. Both are intact. The document existed. It was filed. It was in the public archive. And then it wasn't. The building is still there. Sublevel B is still listed in current facility documentation as an active unit. The 311 bed allocation is still what the state funds. Nobody has added a 312th bed to the official count. Whatever that amendment was meant to correct, whatever legal or administrative purpose it served, the state appears to have decided that correction no longer needs to exist in the public record. But the intake ledger was digitized before any of this. It's in an archive I didn't create and can't control. The two numbers are still there. 312 and 311. Same page. Same row. Same date. The FOIA request for the identity behind the case number has been pending for 14 months. I've followed up 3 times. Each follow-up receives an auto-acknowledgement and a new estimated processing date that passes without response. The 4th follow-up received nothing. I've thought about what the 2 explanations actually mean. Not abstractly. Concretely. If the 312th person was a cooperating witness, someone in protective custody whose location had to be kept off the official count for their safety, then the system worked. The redaction is appropriate. The unlabeled room on sublevel B was a necessary precaution. The retroactive budget amendment was an administrative correction made after the fact to keep the books accurate without creating a public record of where that person was held. The amendment was removed because it was no longer needed, or because someone decided it created more questions than it answered. That's the clean explanation. The other explanation is that someone was held in that facility in a way that the facility could not officially acknowledge. That the legal liability my source referenced was real. That the redaction isn't protecting the person, it's protecting the institution. That the budget amendment was removed not because it was no longer necessary, but because someone realized it was evidence. I don't know which one is true. The record doesn't tell me. What the record tells me is this. A person was logged into that facility. The state has not provided their file. The state has said the disclosure is complete. The room they were held in has no label on any public document. The budget entry that funded their bed has been removed from the archive. And somewhere in a filing system I don't have access to, there are 9 pages with that person's name on them. Every page is black. The building is still standing. The room is still there. I just don't know who was in it.